Welcome to the future of TV and streaming. We've got a great panel that spans a lot of the value chain of this industry. And we're going to talk about a lot of different areas, got a lot of ground to cover. But let's kick off with each of the panelists introducing themselves and a bit of an overview of what you do in the industry. So Grant, perhaps you could kick it off.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Victor, for having me. I am Grant Michelson. I am Vice President of Business Affairs at Disney Branded Television, which means that, among other things, I share live action deal making for the Disney Tile on Disney Plus, and I head up deal making for all unscripted on the Disney Tile. That's a short, quick answer for what I do. And all of the other nonsense that I'm going to say later is my own opinion, as usual. Jonathan knows I always say this, and not representative of the Walt Disney Company as a whole.
Excellent. Thank you for that disclaimer. And now Deirdre.
That's a good disclaimer. Hi, I'm Deirdre Thomas. I'm the Managing Director of Audience Measurement for Nielsen. I'm responsible for our cross-media audience measurement, as well as our national television, local television, and audio measurement. I've been at Nielsen for 11 years now, primarily working with the digital side of our business, everything from product to marketing to client service, and now my current role. Thank you for having me here.
Great. And Evan.
Hey guys, I'm Evan Giamanco. I oversee ad product at Warner Media, and that's everything from Warner Media's linear and digital ad experiences to our advanced advertising capabilities and our ad platform management as well.
Very good. Christina.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christina Chung. I am the VP of Technical Services and Revenue Operations at Australia Media. My particular role is building out the digital infrastructure through creation of new products and services that help to engage our audiences. My team and I are responsible for enabling pitch-to-pay strategies across all our digital facets, including video, audio, display, and social media. And I guess a little tidbit about Australia Media, in case anyone is a little bit curious. We are one of the largest Spanish media companies in the US, providing programming across linear, radio, and digital. And we do represent the 60 million Hispanic population in the US. Excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Great. And Natalie.
Hi, I'm Natalie Bastian. I oversee marketing at Tubi. Tubi is a free ad-supported streaming service. I've been with Tubi since April 2020, about 2 weeks before Tubi was acquired by Fox and right after the pandemic. So it's been a fun, adventurous nearly 2 years. Under marketing, I oversee both the trade and revenue side. So ad sales marketing, in addition to consumer marketing, and then audience research as well.
Great. And I'm Jonathan Hurd, a partner at Altman Solon. We are a strategy consulting firm focused completely on technology, media, and telecom. And we've got 500 people around the world in 13 offices. So let's kick off with a very just brief question about, I feel like I have to ask it, about the pandemic impact, since here we all are virtual, had expected to be in person. But for your business, if you had to pick the top way in which the pandemic has impacted your business, what would you say has been the biggest change for you? And any of you, feel free to answer here.
I'll answer really briefly. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh.
Very briefly, like all of the studios, it halted production initially. We had to find ways in collaboration with the unions to figure out what to do while the science also helped us along. And now we have zones of production, but there's even interruptions that continue to happen as we speak right now. Some of our productions are again being paused because it's just difficult to get done. And then from a corporate perspective, all employees from a corporate perspective at Disney are still at home. The offices may open sometime soon, but that has not yet happened.
Yeah, I would actually, we're learning a lot about production and the halts of which the pandemic are creating since we just started producing original content earlier this year. But I'd say at a macro level, streaming has exploded. And I think it's really, the pandemic has accelerated what inevitably was happening. It just sped things up. And so we've seen explosive growth, especially on the viewership and the consumption route, and also the types of viewers that we're attracting. And part of that is, you know, our affiliation with Fox and having access to their huge promotional vehicle. We found, you know, like many of us filled, our own median age has aged 3 years in the last year. So we're seeing a huge influx of new audiences that are finding streaming, which is a net new obvious benefit over the last year and a half.
You know, it's funny from the, oh, I'm sorry. Deirdre,
Go ahead, Evan.
No, I was just going to say from the Warner side, we actually conducted a research study around intentionalism, and it was mainly focused on like post-pandemic behaviors and everything leading from the beginning of the pandemic to the very end. And we saw in our research that consumers are just so much more focused on being intentional with their time, and they are turning more and more to entertainment, where they want to like proactively spend their time. So I think that was really interesting for us as we think about. And you saw some decisions that we made on the Warner side, from releasing a lot of our movies directly to HBO Max, same day as studios, a bunch of original programming. We know we're capturing the attention more, and we just want to be smart about trying to keep people there, because we know they're coming to us more than they ever have. And I think the pandemic kind of helped spike how people started to spend their time differently.
I was going to comment that at Nielsen, this is not how it impacted our business per se, but we very much see in our measurement the consumer behaviors that both Evan and Natalie mentioned as you guys described the impact. And then specific to Nielsen's own operations, we're working really hard on restoring our panels, which of course were impacted during COVID when everybody was prioritizing safety, and we were not able to go into homes in the way we traditionally had. So we're focused on recovering our panels and getting them back to size, getting them back to demographic representation, and overall improving performance. And second, taking those learnings and embedding them in our business going forward. So we've already hit our sample target for 2021. Not used to saying that it's 2022 yet. 2021, which was 41,000, and as of today, we're at 41,600, which was our target for this quarter. So we're super focused there. We are laser focused on the performance metrics of our panel. We're working closely with the MRC to regain accreditation. And we've stood up new teams within Nielsen that are focused on both the quality of our panel and the inputs into our measurement, as well as proactively measuring and monitoring the output of our measurement to ensure that we take all of these learnings that our measurement is the best it can be in the new world, because I think as we've learned headed into year 3 of this, the world has changed. It's not going back.
I'd like to just echo what Grant was saying earlier. As a content producer, I think it's been very difficult for the studios to, keep going amidst this pandemic. But we at Estrella, we've kept going. We do constant testing with our employees, both from the corporate side as well as the production side. And we actually did have some spurts where we do go back into the office. At this point in time with Omicron, it's been kind of, iffy. So we've actually closed down the office in terms of the corporate side, but for temporary reasons. But the production side still working. It's kind of like, just keep getting tested, whenever we're around talent, and we have to just keep going. So we're finding, new ways to get through this pandemic together. We have seen streaming. Part of the reason why I was hired onto the Estrella team was because of my digital knowledge. And that's what the whole thing during the pandemic was. Streaming was a big thing, and it's really cool to see how we've grown into this business. And I'm looking forward to see what happens in 2022. We can get through this pandemic all together.
Great. Well, you've all been adapting, as have we in our business as well. But so for those of you who are creating content, you mentioned changes in the audience that you're seeing, but I am very curious about how you think about the audiences you're going to target with your content. There are some big streaming services out there that appear to be going after everybody, but not everyone can afford to go after everybody. So how do you think about the audiences and the content that you're licensing or creating? What kinds of strategies are you using for that? Maybe start with Christina on this one.
Yeah, sure. So I think to start out this question, you have to really think about the landscape. So where Estrella Media sits is within the Hispanic media market. And, we have a lot of different players who put together a lot of great telenovelas. Our company, we actually do counter programming. So we definitely focus on other things outside of telenovelas. So what does that really mean? That's things like news, we have sports, we have game shows, we have reality television. So we have all these different type of content pieces that play to beyond just telenovelas, which is kind of the what everyone thinks of when it comes to Hispanic media. And so for us, especially in the pandemic, as people are going towards finding new content that is online, we are definitely playing into the game of, hey, on our free ad-supported television channels, let's make sure we put together a really good piece of content that really, have really core values, embrace the Hispanic audiences that we have on our channels.
Great. Grant, Natalie, Evan, any other points of view here?
We're on the larger side at Disney, so there's a lot of different audiences that Disney serves. Over in my neck of the woods, in the Disney tile on Disney Plus, there is an overall focus on children and family, and that's really our strength. So we are aiming in that direction. However, I think overall, everyone continues the search for the hit. And that is going to be, I think, the ambition of many, many services going forward at all cost levels, particularly the high levels as well. And that's gonna, I think, persist through this year, next year, probably the year after, and who knows after that.
Well, I'll take an alternative approach to that. So we have obviously an AVOD model when it comes to original content, and we're more about narrowcasting than broadcasting. We're not looking for just one big hit. We're looking for building content that is that's attractive to more niche audiences, because we have a lot of niche audiences that build up what Tubi is. And so we really are just finding what content to create based on what we see that's currently working with our acquired content. So we have 35,000 titles. We can see out of our horror genre what's resonating, what plot lines are resonating, what actors are resonating, and then we go off and then we build a next generation version of that. An example of that is Swim. It's a take on a Jaws thriller, if you will. We had the full Jaws series. It performed extraordinarily well. We maximized the summertime period and did an all month long Shark Month, built a lot of viewership around Jaws, and then we dropped Swim into our platform. Huge hit on Tubi standards, because if you watch Jaws, you'll watch Swim and you'll love it. And so building in and feeding what, content intelligence, which is really just our algorithm, our back-end technology, is really what our original content strategy is about. And then we also have bigger moments like the Freak Brothers, which, if you're not familiar, we adapted a 60s comic book about three brothers that essentially love the alternative lifestyle of the 1960s. We took that theme and brought it into the new world, and basically they transform into 2020 and are kind of a fish out of water during the pandemic. So, and this is essentially a niche piece of content. It's adult animation, but we knew we had access to a mass reach vehicle like Fox Adult Animation Domination, and so we built this piece of content because we know we had a promotional vehicle like Fox to support us. And the series one just ended at the end of the year, and Tubi standard, huge hit. It also helped that we had Woody Harrelson, John Goodman, Tiffany Haddish, Pete Davidson, huge diverse cast that had that mass appeal, even though it was niche content. And so far, it's one of our top scripted series on all of Tubi, not just for originals. So that's an example of some of the approaches that we have. And last spring, we talked about, we announced that we're doing a 140 plus hours of original content in the calendar year. So we're well underway with that. But again, we're more focused on consumption based, feeding those niche audiences, and then kind of building block by block on how we're attracting net new audiences with marketing.
That's great. Great example as well of how you've used the viewership and the audience you have and gave them more of the same thing. One thing we've noticed is that established brands who have built an audience, that audience just wants more in that similar genre, and that's a great way to reduce churn and and maintain those audiences as well.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting too, just to chime in here. So we're actually, Straya is also on Tubi. We created the first Straya news channel. It's actually the first 24/7 Spanish language digital news channel. And Tubi is one of our partners. And your talk about having its niche market, it really helped us particularly because it does mimic the linear channels, right? So you can really capture a very broad set of individuals, but still being able to have this niche audience. So for us, it's this Hispanics, and the median Hispanic age is 30 years old, which is fairly young in the industry. And so, something for us was like, oh, well, we got to get onto this, and we have to be making available all of our content. And so it's been really great to see that these fast channels have really taken off, and we're able to expand as a small company beyond just what we were able to do 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's a great example. And just going beyond the types of content, but the way people are viewing content is another way of expanding the way that the strategy goes. Obviously, the bulk of our viewership comes from our on-demand library, but we launched fast channels. We launched news over a year ago. We just launched sports, and we're continuing to expand and test along that. But Australia is a perfect example because nearly half of our audience is multicultural. And so we want to feed that audience with more content in the way that they want to view it. And linear is still a very dominant way. Obviously, broadcast and linear is a huge consumption vehicle off streaming too. So that's a great example as well.
Yeah, speaking of free ad-supported TV and AVOD and SVOD, a variety of different monetization models. You can view it that way. You could also view it as, from a consumer perspective, a lot of different ways of watching content. And what have you seen in terms of audience segments that tend to gravitate toward purely ad-supported versus SVOD versus maybe a hybrid like, HBO Max is, because typically there are tiers of no ads or with ads that are choices even on a SVOD service. So any takeaways that any of you have seen there in terms of the audiences that tend to gravitate toward each model?
I think from our perspective, if we just look at the portfolio, Christina, to your point, Jonathan, we are dabbling in everything, right? We have, premium subscriber products, we have ad-supported products, and then, we have, free kind of TV products. And I think people are spending a lot of money on entertainment. They need the choice. We're not seeing like one specific kind of demographic or certain like household income level coming into these different platforms. We're seeing people tend to pick 2 to 3 services that they'll pay for. And once they land on those 2 to 3, then they're looking for free ad-supported solutions, or a ad-supported version like HBO Max with ads. So you're getting it for a reduced price, but you're able to kind of balance the out-of-pocket that you're paying as a consumer. So I think it's varying, and from our perspective, we just want to give people as much choice as possible. We want to create a relationship with other consumers. Obviously, we'd like to create the most lucrative relationship we can, but whether that's through a premium subscriber model or a partial subscriber advertising model, it really doesn't matter to us as long as they're spending time with us. And there's really no kind of pattern that we're seeing on our side of the house.
Can jump in there and just echo, we see, I think this is stating the obvious, but tremendous usage of streaming, right? We see on a weekly basis, we see 142 million American adults using streaming. About 50% or north of that is subscription-based. The other part is ads. But both of those things are monetization and engagement opportunities with the consumer. One, just to draw their loyalty and their engagement, but also even in a not ad-supported model, people still pay attention and are affected by the products that they see, the placements that they see, the integrations. Those things have always mattered, and they matter on streaming too. So I think that's really important. The other thing I'll note is that two points, and they kind of go to the last question as well. One is that I think the multicultural audience is really important, both for the content as well as the messaging that you put in ads or the content. People need to be spoken to about their life and about themselves, and they need to see themselves and their lives in the screen in both the content and the ads. So that reflects itself in the data as well when we see we use our inclusion analytics product to look at the diversity of a cast within a piece of content, and then we can look at that against the viewership of that piece of content as well. And that's a really important insight, I think, for producers as well as for marketers. And the other piece too is that these 142 million adults that we see watching it, they're not just the young people at all. We see older generations gravitating to it as well. And I think that's really important, again, to make sure that the consumer is being served and they're seeing things that are interesting to them, which may not be the child and family tile on Disney Plus, but Disney Plus has other stuff that they put out there for older generations, like the miniseries about the Beatles, right? So it's really speaking to people where they are and providing stuff that matters to them.
Grant, any observations there you've seen about different monetization models and how you think about that overall?
I used to be more closely connected to those models than I am now, since I have been focusing on getting stuff produced. As I look as an observer of the different platforms that Disney has, and I agree with Deirdre and other people who have spoken about what's out there, it looks like this streaming thing is here to stay and dominant. And the offerings at Disney Plus, when coupled with that Disney bundle of Hulu and ESPN Plus, really provide a compelling solution, I think, to a very, very wide segment of the viewing audience that is very competitive with the other larger choices out there, and is, I think, intended to be one of those top choices for the consumer pocketbook before making some of the harder choices about which services to subscribe to.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Bundling is clearly a way to attract different audiences who might want just one of the pieces of a bundle, but then if you've got others who find that, hey, I was going to subscribe to these anyway, or I might stretch a little more and get it. I think we're going to see a lot more bundling in 2022 within and possibly across services, just because the economics make more sense for consumers, and it helps attract a bigger base for programmers as well. So
one thing, Jonathan, too, is that like free is not going to go away though. So like while SVOD is like a big player, free is always going to be there, and people gravitate towards free, as Evan had mentioned before. And so, there's going to be that bundling potentially, what Grant mentioned, or consumers going to pick their top three, SVOD players or platforms. But at the end of the day, that free where you watch it, through fast channels or have like an AVOD app or something like that, it's always going to be there. And so you really kind of have to know who is your audience and like what is engaging for them. And for us, I think from Estrella, it's really producing good content that really touches each of the audiences that we're reaching, and being able to provide that availability everywhere. So whether it's on, these AVOD apps, on our YouTube channel, anywhere.
Yeah, one thing I'll just add to that, with just looking at free, obviously Tubi is free, but free, honestly, it's expanding on the meaning, as far as free means something different to me than it does to all of you. And I think free is kind of the entry point for many consumers and why they chose Tubi, but ultimately free needs to expand into access and discovery, because at the end of the day, to everyone's point here, subscription fatigue is real. That's going to expand in the next year. People are going to be making cuts. If God willing, we expand beyond the pandemic and, do things other than streaming in our lives. And so free services are going to be a great complement to that. But who's going to win that is based on how they discover it, not only the app, but the content within the app. And so the importance of distribution and where all of these apps and opportunities can be found is really going to be essential in order to maintain scale and continue to grow for all of the apps.
Yeah, it's a great segue on distribution, Natalie. How do you think about where to distribute, how to distribute, given there are a lot of different choices now in terms of connected TV platforms or aggregating through other platforms? How do you all think about that?
I mean, we'll be anywhere. We are everywhere. We're across all major distributors, whether you're connected TV or an OTT device. So whether it's a stick and a puck or TVs, mobile web, we're everywhere that content via internet can be consumed. That's paramount for sure.
Yeah, and I have to agree with Natalie. It's kind of, we want to be everywhere, but we are a small player. So, it's our capital only goes so far. So for us, we do have to kind of choose and kind of look into the details as to where our audience really watching. And so, we try to use as much research papers as possible and kind of determine, where are the different fast distribution points that we should go to. We're on all the major ones, but like beyond the major ones, which ones are the most, the ones that we're going to get the most ROI. And so we kind of do assess, where we could be. Although you're right, Natalie, like being everywhere would be wonderful. So it's for us, it's just getting the reach and making sure that people can see from like the first homepage or from the first screen that you turn on your television, being able to select that.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about measurement. Obviously, audience measurement as advertising becomes more prevalent in streaming services with the growth of FAST. Deirdre, what are some of the challenges associated with measuring across these new platforms, and particularly with connected TV, and challenges and opportunities associated with that?
Sure, it's certainly both. I mean, as we just talked about, streaming is not going anywhere, right? So the new world, it's not even that new, but the number one ask has always been help us understand our consumers regardless of where they are consuming content, and enable us to do that in a comparable way, deduplicated fashion, so that I can understand them regardless of where they are. And that's the path that Nielsen is on with Nielsen One, which is going to be our cross-media measurement solution, providing deduplicated audience measurement across all platforms on an apples to apples basis. But on the path to get there, we're doing a lot of things. So we're laser focused on our streaming solutions, where today we can measure the ads, we can measure the consumption of content within an app, we can measure at the app level. And actually today we announced another service that we call Streaming Signals, which helps target ads within a streaming world, so that both the buyers and the sellers can understand not just what household they're reaching, but who within the household is actually consuming the content. Is it my 5-year-old daughter, or is it my husband and I unwinding at the end of the night? And you can receive an appropriate ad depending on who it is that's watching. So we're really focused on that aspect of our measurement, even on the path toward Nielsen One. We're also really, I think, an important part of measuring in this world where consumers can consume content anywhere is the ability to do so at scale and to bring it together. And at Nielsen, we think of that in a couple of ways. Number one, we have really important partnerships with a lot of players in the ecosystem so that we actually have the data to provide the measurement. So we have partnerships with smart TV providers, with return path data or cable companies, as well as with streaming players, that we actually can get in census level data to understand highly fragmented consumer behavior. Number two, we have our panel, which we believe is a really important truth set, because when you bring in big data, there are imperfections and shortcomings, a lot of it's household level or different things like that, that you have to do to understand the people and to make it measurement grade. So we use our panel as a truth set. And then thirdly, identity is incredibly important to all of us because we need to understand people across all of these different consumption points. And measurement is relying on that as well. So at Nielsen, we have our identity resolution system that we use as the backbone of our measurement. The panel plays an important role, but so does the big data and machine learning and other things that we do to provide that measurement. So we're excited on the path that we're on. We believe that we're building in a way that provides comprehensive measurement, robust and durable measurement, because the world is changing, right? As data becomes very regulated, people understand the privacy that they need and expect in the way their data is managed. And we're building in a way that allows us to future-proof both for that, as well as to future-proof for, you know, the next wave of how people will consume things, because we're not going to stop at streaming. Who knows what will come next, but behavior will change and consumption will change. And our path is to be able to allow the industry to understand the consumer comparably across.
Sorry. And, you know, with respect to measurement and advertising and the importance of meeting advertisers' needs with this, with all of these different ways of viewing content. You know, Evan, we had talked about how you think about advertising and some of the approaches you're using. Could you give us some background there?
Yeah, sure. I think for us, and you know, piggybacking off of everything kind of Deirdre mentioned, it's all about managing reach and frequency for us. So we know that our audiences are consuming both linear television and digital forms of television, whether it's, you know, through connected TVs, their laptops, whatever the case may be. And again, tying back to that identity point that she made earlier. So how do we actually start to look at us as people opposed to our devices and really start to kind of think about advertising storytelling across those different endpoints, so we can give you good sequential messaging across these devices and kind of take you down the purchasing funnel. So when we think about measurement, we think about it from a reach and frequency perspective. How do we do that? And then ultimately, how are we going to measure outcomes for our advertisers, right? Especially if we try to think, you know, how does the digital pot of money grow as, you know, linear audiences are starting to decline, and how do we kind of capture that money? We need to be able to drive outcomes to justify the shifts in those budgets. So, you know, we're working and embedding, our research department has been spending a ton of time on this, a variety of different partners that we can come work with to like really just expand our, you know, our solution set for partners. It's all about interoperability with us. So as long as we can measure reach and frequency, we can provide outcomes. We want to be able to work with a variety of partners that can do that, and give our clients really the best results, the easiest way to measure that.
So for you or Natalie, Christina, anyone that works with advertisers, can you give some case studies of either campaigns that have worked, or you know, Evan, in terms of reaching a specific audience, you know, what are you seeing working out there from an advertising perspective?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting much better at precision targeting against our audiences, right? And I think, you know, for those of us who have a robust first party data set, that makes things a lot easier, especially with the deprecation of cookies. Like, it's becoming difficult to really understand and know who your audience is in a deterministic way. So I think, you know, having that set is super important, and it's helped us really identify these people. We know that when we hit the right person, it's a more effective ad experience for our brands and for our consumers. So I think that's working. When we're thinking about hitting those people, it's not just about hitting the right audience, but it's also hitting them with the right ad experience. So we've been really focused on like commercial break patterns, you know, meaning like if you're consuming one of our programs through Hulu, you may get a larger ad load or heavier ad load rather than you would if you came directly into one of our owned and operated applications and watched a show. HBO Max, great example, right? Like, we've got the industry leading ad load time, or, you know, under 4 minutes an hour of advertising there. But if you're watching some of that programming in other environments, you might be getting upwards to 5 to 6 minutes of advertising per hour. So it's finding that audience, but then also depending on their relationship with us, offering the optimal ad experience. And when we do those things together, they react well to the advertising that's surrounding it, and it's justifying us charging a premium for that back to our advertising partners.
Yeah.
I'd say go ahead, Christina.
Natalie.
So I would just say more at a macro level of what we're hearing from advertisers, and again, being the platform, being able to own and build a ideal ad experience is definitely a benefit to being the platform. We have an extremely low ad load as well, but beyond that, because our inventory is available beyond going direct, because we are, available across other distributors, duplication of ads and waste of ads is really important and a big pain point for advertisers. And as a brand myself buying, really important to understand reach and frequency. And so we have advanced frequency management. It's a tool that we're able to assess and be able to identify through logo IDs to see how often an ad is running, regardless if you bought direct with Tubi or through a DSP partner. And we're able to monitor and be able to show, wasted ads versus not, to help optimize future plans. So that's one way that we built it internally, but there's also other partners as well that we're focused on, whether to prove out incremental reach beyond just linear, but across different streaming as well, because that's going to become increasingly popular as scale and consumption continues to grow across AVOD.
Yeah, I think that this need to be efficient and to understand who you've reached with what ad has worked is so critical, and what we hear over and over as a basic need, even before you get to the outcomes. And at CES, although we're sort of at CES, we announced the launch of our Nielsen One Alpha for our ads module of the measurement, which is really the first time where we're providing deduplicated measurement across 4 screens toward this very end, right? So that you can understand that ad and that campaign across all the 4 screens and manage effectively, so that you are doing all of the things that Evan and Natalie and I think Christina wanted to speak about as well. So we're super excited about that. We think the Alpha is a real game changer, an important first step on the path to achieving exactly what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and I think honestly, you guys took what I was going to say out of my mouth, but you know what, I think to add to that is that we actually have like a regional Mexican music similar to the Grammys performances. And one of the innovative ad campaigns that we had was AutoZone, and it encompasses everything that you guys were working on, everything from like the streaming, from display to everything. And we actually incorporated that into our Premios de la Radio concert, essentially. And so I think what advertisers are also looking for is that experiential advertising campaign to really engage with the audience. So not only do we have to think about the frequency and the reach and everything like that comes with digital and streaming, but it's also like adding to that, like adding this experience that is kind of unlike and very unique experience that you can do as a whole package, not just linear, not just streaming. It's really the full picture. So that's something that was, I think, really exciting for us that we were able to do at Premios de la Radio.
Great example. And it sounds like that's an example also of the world. There's been a lot of talk about trending toward programmatic, and that ads are more now associated with audiences as opposed to the content itself. But it certainly does seem like there are plenty of opportunities still to do these campaigns where the brand is associated with the programming, not just done in a programmatic fashion. I don't know, Natalie, what are you seeing about that trend toward programmatic as opposed to branding ads associated with programming?
Yeah, the one thing said, just when you mentioned that, I thought of contextual targeting versus behavioral, and ultimately looking at it from a lens of brand safety, where the importance of a brand knowing the types of content they're surrounded around, not only just the environment, is paramount. It's always going to be at the top of the list. And with TV and streaming, there's a natural assumption that all content's brand safe, but then is it relevant? So we check the box on brand safety, but the importance is the audience watching the content, and is there that connection? And so there is, in context is really important, which speaks to more content level targeting. And so obviously having a massive library, we have access to, you know, one audience could watch several different types of content and ranging from different genres. So, you know, we are finding ways to build more insights to help inform brands on what their audiences are actually watching. So going beyond that third party target and showing them more insights than what they may be getting from other streaming platforms.
Great. All right, well, I have a final question for all of you. And since, you know, we're starting off the new year, and you may or may not have New Year's resolutions, but what are your priorities for 2022? Without giving away any company secrets, obviously, or feel free to if you want. But you know, what do you see as your main priorities for 2022? And I'll let's go in reverse order here from the starting question. Christina.
Yeah, so I think like one of our big strategies is really to create like a very easy, intuitive, hassle-free platform experience. You know, we, like I had mentioned before, we're on our FAST channels, we have our AVOD apps. We really do want to make sure that the experience for our audience is very paramount. You know, the engagement via our content, with even the Spanish ads that are on our content, we want that to be as engaging as possible. And our strategy is this free content model. So we want to be able to really optimize on AVOD and FAST. And so we definitely foresee, like in 2022, that's definitely going to be our focus, and making sure that the experience is, you know, as robust and as intuitive as possible for our users. And also being able to provide as interesting content that is really, you know, some of the core values or reaches the core values of our audience.
Great, Natalie.
Yeah, I would actually say, you know, experience as well is extremely on top of the list as awareness of Tubi continues to grow and more people discover Tubi, making sure that they're finding something that they want to watch and then continue to watch, which feeds into our technology, is really important. So really prioritizing experience, which feeds into discovery, which feeds into ads, which feeds into the whole concept. So I'd say experience is at the top of the list.
Got it. Evan.
We're investing significantly in technology. You know, I think from the content side, that's where we've spent much of our legacy in investing in, is in producing great content. And we're really doubling down on technology, and specifically like modernizing our ad tech stack. We want to get to a point where it's very easy to do all the things we talked about earlier, right? Manage reach and frequency across linear and digital endpoints. You know, come out with extremely robust first-party data that we can provide to our advertisers to give them a better experience and to give our consumers a better ad experience when consuming our content. So that's really the focus for us, is, you know, tech investment to build a modern tech stack. And I think, you know, the last piece of that is we want to get to a point where every single impression that we deliver is audience targeting enabled, whether that's across linear or digital. So heavy investments in building out our national addressable footprint on the linear side, and really having our audience targeting capabilities on linear television start to catch up to our targeting capabilities across our digital endpoints. So that's where we're going to be spending a big chunk of our time in 22 and beyond.
Got it. Deirdre.
Our priority overarching this year is Nielsen One, and we're on a path to that. And within that, I think there's a number of things. One is restoring our panel and regaining accreditation, doing so in a way of utmost transparency with all of our partners and with the MRC. Second, Evan, to your point around bringing addressable, we are bringing big data into our national television measurement, and we're starting to provide impact data this month, and that will go into the measurement in the fall season of this year, which is a really important step to addressing the consumer fragmentation I talked about earlier. but also an enabling measurement of addressable ads in linear, which is I think a big evolution in what's going to happen in the industry, and a really important one. The alpha, which I mentioned earlier, launched this week, in which we are providing to the industry as the first look at deduplicated ad measurement across screens. And finally, by the end of the year, full launch of Nielsen One, which will be, sub-minute television, exact commercial ratings directly comparable and deduplicated against digital and other forms of media. So we have a lot that we're aiming for. We're excited about it.
Great. And Grant.
Well, thank you. I really love hearing what everybody on this panel is doing, particularly with respect to advertising. I've always loved advertising and everything about it. It just turns out that these days I'm on this platform that has no advertising. When I think about the biggest growth and opportunities for Disney Plus, to me, it is the increasing global footprint of the service. And to me, that is where there will be the greatest level of opportunity. And it can be best capitalized upon, in my opinion, with a broad, content-specific, brand-focused offering that I think is going to be coming to the service even more so soon. There are some fantastic new unscripted series and documentaries that are going to be hitting the service soon that are, from what I see, really distinctive from other things that are out there, as well as some high concept, expensive, scripted, high budget series as well that I hope move the needle and continue a growth trajectory for the service, which has come under some scrutiny recently.
All right. Well, thank you all. And thank you, Victor Harwood, for having us. I've really enjoyed the panel, and it's been a pleasure meeting you all. So look forward to in-person meetings in the future. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.